I'm not going to kid myself that you guys are here to actually hear me speak, because you might not know who I am. I think you're probably here because you'd like to hear about a technology that's near and dear to everybody these days. Car Talk. Any Car Talk fans out there? Anybody who was ever on the show? No? Nobody who was on the show? If you're not familiar with Car Talk, it was a radio program on National Public Radio. It ran from 1978 until about 2012, and it was pure genius. The premise was two brothers, Click and Clack, had a radio program, and people would call in, and they would describe the problem with their car, and these guys would try and diagnose the problem just based on what they heard. So it might go something like this. Hey, Ziliak from Chicago with a Z. Yeah, what's going on? And I'd say, well, you know, I turn my transmission and it goes rah, rah, rah. And then they might make a joke about deep dish pizza or who am I loyal to, White Sox or Cubs, but eventually they'd say, it must be the transmission. So, you know, I bring that up because it was so crude and so unbelievable, yet it was actually pretty realistic. Because think about what it used to be like when you take your car to the mechanic. A lot of guesswork on the estimate, a lot of guesswork on what the repair should be. Here you go, sir, $900, and you drive away and all of a sudden clunk, 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 and you still got the same problem. Well, in the automotive industry, there's been a lot of transformation, right? If you take your car in, and cars are much more quality now, they just don't break down that much. But now, when you take your car in, you see a lot of this. People plug in a mobile device, and they'll do a computerized diagnostic. And what the result is, a really transformed experience, not just for the mechanic, who has a lot more confidence in the diagnostic, but in the customer who knows that the estimate that they're getting from the mechanic is going to be reliable, and what they're going to pay for is actually what they're going to get. But you know, the mechanic experience is not the only place in the auto industry where we've seen transformation. So I mentioned I live in Chicago. And in Chicago, we have, you might not know this, the most expensive parking meters in the nation. And there's a bonus that comes with that. Some of the most expensive parking tickets for parking meter violations in the country too. And you can see from Mayor Rahm Emanuel, I'm not getting a whole lot of sympathy from him, but lately I did get a break from him. We got an app. And it's actually pretty cool because now we can pay for our parking on an app, go into the neighborhood, go to a shop, go to a restaurant, and enjoy ourselves. And then get a text alert. And then from that text alert, I could actually punch back in, feed it for additional time, you know, right from wherever I am. I don't have to return to the car. And it's really a transformed experience. Now, does it justify the most expensive parking meters in the nation? That's another topic. But it's really pretty cool what they've done. So my name is Paul Ziliak. I'm the co-founder of a company called xkzero. xkzero is a mobile app developer for ERP systems. We're based in Chicago. And I'm very passionate about mobile ERP. And I'm here today to share with you things that I've learned working with companies probably just like yours, small and medium-sized businesses that are looking to make a difference, looking to grow, looking to prosper. The companies that we work with happen to be doing it through mobile. So my primary goal for today, hopefully, is to help you walk away with a better understanding about how to make decisions for mobile in your business. So these are the basic things we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about why I think mobile technology is here to stay, what makes mobile special in the first place, mobile in your industry, each and every one of you, choosing the right technology, and how to build an effective strategy. So I'm going to start with why mobile's here to stay. And the pace of technology is really dizzying. And I think it's interesting to note that we can look at the technology world and we can look at the physical world and we could see similar kinds of things going on. Stephen Hawking, you might be familiar with him. In his best-selling book, A Brief History of Time, he theorized that after the Big Bang, that all objects in our universe started to move apart from one another. But what's interesting to note is as solar systems move further and further apart from that big bang, from that point of origin, the rate of acceleration that they move apart increases. Very interesting thing. So what does this have to do with mobile business? And I think what it has to do is, if we can accept the fact that it was a big bang in technology, and then technology started to move out from that starting point, that things are moving the further we get away from that starting point in technology, the faster technology is changing for us. So I'm going to guess that most of you recognize Stephen Hawking. How many recognize this guy? Nah, I wouldn't expect. His name's Pacioli. I'm not going to try his first name, but he was an Italian contemporary of Leonardo da Vinci. And he's also the inventor of double entry bookkeeping. So this is a person who's responsible for the systems that we used in business for about 500 years. So he created a system. We use tools, paper and pencil, that survived half a millennium. Amazing. In fact, when I entered the workforce in the mid-1980s, the tools I used mostly, pencil and paper. Quite an enduring technology. But I'm not sure if it qualified as a big bang. Now, very early in my career, I worked in public accounting, worked for a CPA firm. And the way that we did tax returns, my first year we did them in pencil. Neat handwriting was a required skill. I didn't have it. The second year they helped me out. They gave us computer input forms. We'd fill out the paper forms. We'd send them to the courier when he'd come 2 times a day. They'd take them to a tax processing center, bring them back. We'd review them. And if they were wrong, you know what we did? We pulled out another form, a correction form, and we filled in the little circles of what we needed to do. Now, for a rookie tax preparer like me, imagine the challenge of setting an expectation for a client for when they might have their tax return, how much they're going to owe, when the technology takes that long. But hey, I was born at a great time to be able to do this because I'm new in the workforce, and in no time, I had my first mobile technology, a compact 286, 28 pounds. Hey Ziliak, hey rookie, carry the laptop through the airport. Whew. That was a rough one, but what was cool is now I was able to do things like electronic spreadsheets, right? I could do working trial balance. I was actually beginning to change my work habits in ways that I didn't really quite recognize at the time, except I did notice it saved time. Very quickly after that, we had local area networks. And the local area networks, well, they spawned PC-based, network-based accounting software systems and ERP systems that we have today. Up until that point, many companies were using paper-based systems, but now with the network technology, people were able to collaborate, share information, work from a common software program, and I got into that business right about that time. So I make an interesting observation about technology that I think relates to mobile if we look at what happened with software when we went from paper-based systems to computer-based systems. Because this was a very painful transition for a lot of companies. We're changing the entire way we're tracking sales, inventory, purchasing, payables, receivables, general ledger reporting, all of that stuff. We did the ledger sheets, finish it to the column here, open another book, and take it down this way. It was a horrible process, but when we came in with the software, we were able to eliminate all these steps, do so much more. But it wasn't for everybody. In fact, I remember once in the early 90s, I went in to a manufacturing company, and one of the assignments that I had was to automate the payroll system. And there was a woman, Pam, who was there. She might have been in her 60s. So I was working with Pam on a Friday, going through all the things we needed to do to set up to take the payroll that she was doing for 300 employees on paper and put it into a computerized system. I go in Monday to follow up on the kind of groundwork we laid on Friday. And I said, "Where's Pam?" Pam retired. Like hell, I'm going to learn that computer. So it wasn't for everybody, and there was some pain. But think about this, especially for those of you who might have been at companies who went from paper systems to computerized accounting systems, or those of you who are consultants who might have put those systems in. Are you aware of any companies who scrapped their software and went back to paper and said, this is a better way? You'd had one client who did that. And what happened to that business? On paper? All right, so we've got one. There's an outlier everywhere. All right, terrific. Right. Well, things are changing fast. So then we got the internet, and the way that we were able to share data and learn what other people were doing at any moment in time around the world expanded greatly. As long as we were at our desktop and as long as we could rely on the modem. Fax machines and early cell phones. What these were here, these predated what we're doing now with mobile technology. These were manifestations of our desire to be connected all the time. We had the local area networks, but that was only at the office. These crude tools right here allowed us to start to be connected when we're away from the office. Social media changed the way that we express everything, but even the early social media, you were bound to the computer. Once you left wherever, your house, your work, you couldn't do anything with it until 1997. Each one of these steps is moving faster and faster. 1997, we had the iPhone, soon we had the iPad, the Android phones, all of that, and everyone, from little kids to grandmas to business people to individuals, were liberated from their desktop, and they were starting to be able to change all of their habits with these mobile devices. In fact, the impact of it has been so strong that mobile now is dictating technologies that came before it, like websites. Where's that? There we go, right there. So I'm going to do that again. So, here's a new Sage X3 website, and that's what it looks like on a desktop. But if I look at it on a smartphone, it looks like that. It's the exact same website, because now there's something called responsive design. And with responsive design, we're seeing mobile-first technology development on the web. Okay, it's got to work on the desktop, but first I need to make it work on the smartphone. Are we ready for wearable technology? Says here I've got a project briefing with Whitney in 15 minutes. I'm not sure if I'm ready for that, but seems kind of cool. And how about Google Glass? In Chicago, there are paramedics who are starting to experiment with Google Glass. And think about the transformative impact of this. When they're out at an emergency site and the doctor is back in the emergency room and they're able to take more decisive action, hopefully to save life or limb in some cases, because of this technology. It's really pretty amazing. So, take a minute to soak all of that in. Pencil and paper survived for, 500 some years. But a lot of those primitive PC technologies got washed out in less than a generation. It's amazing the speed with which things have changed now. Deloitte said in a recent study called The Dawn of Mobile Influence that mobile commerce, right, that would be what you all do, commerce, business, will grow by 250% between now and 2016, a rate 6 times that e-commerce is expected to grow in the same time frame. And this one's worth noting too. On this little yellow bar here, Apple in 2013 sold more iPads, iPhones, iPod touches, so Apple alone sold more mobile devices than every PC maker on earth sold PCs. Think about that. That doesn't even take into account all the devices for Android, all the devices for Windows or other mobile platforms. It's a strong and gathering force. You guys know it, you're using them now. So let's take a minute and talk about what makes mobile so special in the first place. Why has it had such a driving influence on change in our behavior? Show of hands, how many people have smartphones? How many checked the smartphone sometime in the last 30 minutes for something, anything? Pinterest, ESPN, email, almost everybody. How many are checking it right now? Yeah, exactly, right? Why do we do that? You know, why is it so urgent? You know, I've got one idea because it's there, right? But that doesn't explain it enough. You know, yes, it is there. Yes, it's acceptable. That makes it, yeah. The size. Yes, the size is very important. That's part of the accessibility. Yeah, no, I love it. But, you know, not only is it there, but it's about what's there. You know, it's about things that we have passion for. You know, like it or not, the things that you're checking on your phone, that's reflective of what you care about. You know, I first found out about what I was information I was passionate about when I was a kid. When I was a kid, we got the newspaper at home like almost everybody did then. And when the newspaper wasn't delivered on time, I got on my bike, I chased through the neighborhood to find the paper boy. I'd retrieve it from him and bring it home. All I wanted to know was what was up with the Detroit Tigers. That's all I cared about. But I was passionate about that information, and I would have died to have a smartphone. Then I would have been so much more informed. It would have been so much more immediate. I would have been checking it all the time. So it's there, but it's information that we're passionate about. It's information that we care about that makes it special. Mobile is also special because of the confidence that it gives people, right? So you're better informed, you're better prepared, you feel more secure about your decision making because you've got information to back up your thoughts. There's also matters of economy and efficiency, like it fits in your pocket thing, the size, that enters into it. And I don't know if any of you have seen this. It made it around the internet a month or so ago. People passed around this thing that said, almost everything in this Radio Shack ad from the early 1990s is now in an iPhone. You know, so if you look at it, we have AM, FM, clock radio, we got earbuds, we've got tape recorder, we've got camcorder, computer, we've got a phone, all of those things. And these things are all terrific in their time, but they all need to be purchased, they need to be maintained, they need to be replaced when they broke or got lost, and none of them talk to each other. So economy and efficiency. Any Groupon users out there? So you Groupon users, do Groupons on your mobile device? So, you know, Groupon, I forget the number, I should have looked it up. Somewhere in the neighborhood, 70 to 75% of their revenue is from mobile devices. So why is that? So Eric Lefkofsky, who's one of the founders and now the CEO of Groupon, you know, he says it's because it's real time, it's opportunistic, and it's geo-aware, and that those things make it special. But there's another thing too, and you guys might not think about this a whole lot, is that mobile technology is also intimate. You know, if I'm out with a customer and I'm showing them my price catalog on my iPad, unless I hand it to them, if we're going to look at it together, we're shoulder to shoulder. You know, if I'm getting a signature on a delivery, we might be shoulder to shoulder. Look at how your kids play games. They all kind of lay on top of each other, you know, and do that. So, you know, we think about mobile being isolating, but there's an intimate aspect to it that shouldn't be overlooked when it comes to business. So the things that make mobile special in our personal lives also present opportunities for us to make mobile part of our business lives, even in the industry, you know, every industry that you guys are in. So let's talk about mobile in industry and where I see it. So I've heard this talk, you know, we talk with people every day about mobile, and I've had plenty of people say to me, mobile doesn't apply to my industry. Maybe those people, maybe it was those people who are on the paper-based accounting system. I'll have to remember, write down some names of those people. 5 or 10 years ago, I would agree with that statement that mobile might not have applied to your industry, because really, like our company, all we had to think about back then were food and beverage, wine and spirits, linens, uniforms, field service dispatch people. You know, there were very specialized groups of companies who really needed to have mobile and they invested in those technologies, but other industries could safely ignore it. One of the reasons that they safely ignored it is the legacy technology. You know, this big brick thing that I'm doing mobile processing with, it's actually not very economical, it's not very efficient, and a lot of times not very reliable, and it's not very flexible. It's also, in most cases, not a phone, not a camera, not email, not the internet, it's not apps. What else am I missing? Music. I can't get music on that guy. So that's why a lot of industries didn't bother. So this is the big shift, right? 2007, Apple released the iPhone, and everything changed. Because I think you guys are experiencing this in your life, that your smartphone, your tablet, works most of the time the way you would expect for it to work. Subject to internet connectivity, but we now have a platform that's reliable, flexible, dependable. And that goes for the smartphone technology itself. The mobile operating systems that they're developed on are very advanced and very mature. And now we have internet bandwidth and availability that we couldn't have dreamed of even 5 years ago. So here's a new reality for industries. And this is just an example list of industries that we've had the opportunity to work with for mobile technology in the past year. So we've seen companies automate picking, packing, and shipping for thousands of orders a day using iPad minis. We've seen commercial landscaping people going out to the field site, determining how much material they needed for the job, attaching a photo or a sketch of that job, having that pushed back into their ERP order entry system. So the install team just went straight into the ERP to see what the landscape looked like and what they needed to do exactly once they installed that job. We've seen heavy equipment operators being out in their customer sales location. Heavy equipment operators who ship things LTL, right? Less than truckload shipments, heavy pieces of equipment where the freight is going to cost a lot. This is an industry where you need to know the all-in price on that product before you win the deal. I'm not going to guess at what the freight's going to be. So these are people with their smartphones who push a button once they've selected the products that they're quoting or selling, and they're shopping for the best carrier and the best rate selection available to them in that moment from their mobile devices. We've seen companies who used to rely on laptops and terminal services at trade shows in industries like decorative home products that are highly seasonable and highly reliant on trade shows now be able to use offline technology that's very easily deployed on smartphones or tablets, so they could take a high volume of orders at trade show and not worry about whether or not they have the internet connection. So a few things these companies have in common. All of these companies that I talked about, they replaced paper-based systems with mobile technology. They did a mobile process for the first time to create a competitive opportunity that's compelling, that's different, that's a differentiator from their competitors. Another thing they all have in common is they all use different Sage ERPs too. And that same study I talked about a few moments ago about Deloitte says about this in mobile. If you're not doing it in your industry, somebody is. So I want to talk next about technology a little bit, and I'm not going to get terribly technical on it, but the purpose of this here is to give you a little bit more of a framework and a language about technology decisions that you might make for your business. So, rivalries stir passions, right? They spark arguments, they can even divide households. But one of the nice things about rivalries is there's a competitive force that hopefully is making the competitors better and better. Anyone from Green Bay want to argue that the Bears have not been getting better and better and their chief rival keeps pounding them down? But can you see that? I knew it. That's a little Android guy. There's a little Apple guy. I should have spoke up. I thought that was too faint. It's too faint. So here's a little Android guy, a little Apple guy. We're benefiting this from a lot, you know. I only wish that Windows would start to become more formidable in it, because I do think that a three-way rivalry for business would be good. Windows hasn't really got the foothold, really hasn't got the mind share with people yet. So it's mostly Android and Apple right now, so that's what I'm going to talk about. And here's some things for you to think about in choosing technology. First thing is, your number one priority should be ensuring a great user experience. That should be first and foremost, regardless of what it is that you're going to mobilize. Make sure that you've got a great user experience in mind. And then next, you know, about Apple. So Apple and Android have some real differences. Apple has a closed developer environment. Means you need to pass muster with Apple to be able to post your apps to the App Store. The products have to get reviewed and meet certain standards by Apple before they're allowed to be there. And Apple is also limited to Apple hardware and the cell phone carriers that Apple supports. But it's interesting, and this is a little bit old, but I don't think a whole lot has changed. 95% of custom business apps, according to All Things D, have been for the Apple platform. Despite advantages that we've seen that Android offers, a more open developer environment, it's easier to get into the Android world. Less expensive hardware, more hardware cell phone choices, not really a review process that you have to go through. The downside is, you know, in the Android stores, you don't have the same kind of assurance that that product has been vetted. Yet it can't be ignored, because 81%, you know, and growing, Android's share of smart technologies has been growing. So we can't ignore Android by any stretch of the imagination. But the next few slides we'll talk about why Apple is a safer bet, I'm just going to say, when it comes to supportability, especially for business. Too faint? All right, I'm going to point them out. I've got 4 different rectangles here, and these represent what's called form factors. A form factor is just the size of the device. So iPhone 4, iPhone 5, iPad mini, regular iPad. And those are the form factors that if you have an Apple application, an iOS application, that developers have to keep in mind. Here's what it looks like for Android. This is the cost of freedom. You can put Android on any device, but it means from a business software standpoint, you need to be prepared to have your application deal with a lot of variability. Here's another one too. Don't know why this is. In the Apple world, and this is iOS 6, but I couldn't find a graphic for it, and I was too lazy to make one. But the same thing happened with iOS 7. Really, within weeks of Apple releasing a new operating system, they get 90+% adaptation to that new operating system. Android, on the other hand, has consistently had the most commonly used operating system being 4 or 5 versions back. That creates real support challenges for somebody supporting someone in business, especially if you're doing things like barcode scanning, printing, credit card swipe, those kinds of things. But the bottom line on technology is this, that our Android and the Apple guy is back. Define your requirements first, and then choose your technology platform. Because Android could be perfectly fine for you. It depends on what the specific needs are for your business. So next I'm going to talk about, this will be my last section here, how to create a mobile strategy, a framework for your business. Nobody wants to be left behind. We talked about how we continue to move forward with technology. No one wants to be left behind. But yesterday's tools are not very flexible, they're not very responsive, and they potentially are going to leave you vulnerable to the competition. You don't want to be stuck. And if you're not making a move in your business, if you're not equipping people with information that can have them more informed, feeling more secure, improved decision making and all of that, because you've got business data that you care about here or in your pack, or in your purse or your handbag, this could be the last thing that your sales rep does before an important meeting. What is Candy Crush? Addicting. So in your mobile strategy, the key is map your mobile strategy to a business strategy. And keys for that, this isn't different than any other business strategy. ROI expectations, behavioral expectations, make sure they're documented and understood and supported by management. And a real key is starting with brainstorming. How will we transform X? What are we going to change? Can we change the way we interact, the way we work, the way we prepare, how we track? And really, once you get there, you can start to get more specific about what you might do. Oh, come on. It's like heat sensitive or something. Accelerating sales, cash flow, reducing costs, creating a paperless warehouse, enabling a new employee lifestyle, improved decision making. What you want to do is start to get very specific about what your hopes and expectations are from mobile. Engage your team and get buy-in and start to think about, all of the different things that you might do. Selling at a customer location or a trade show event. Having customer inquiries or inventory inquiries in your pocket. Having a product or a price catalog or a proposal presentation. Doing lead capture. B2B mobile sales. All kinds of different things that can disrupt the competition and transform your business. And also remember, it's not just about selling. Most of the apps for mobile that you'll find out there now are about selling. A lot of them about warehouse too. But the big reason they're out there for selling is that's what drives, the growth of business. But there are mobile opportunities in your warehouse, on the shop floor, in customer service, with things like expense reporting, purchasing, transportation management, financial intelligence, workflow approvals, and more. But remember, the user experience is vital, and this thing has got a mind of its own now. Here's another one too. Requirements will vary by the role. Make sure you've got the flexibility in your system. Even though we're doing the same task, we might have different permissions. Keep an eye out for the opportunity in the applications you might buy or build for that. Another thing, if you're using a Sage 50 system or a Sage 100 system, don't expect to find an app that's going to replace everything that you do right out of the box. That's really not what mobile is about. Mobile is more about doing a specific thing and doing it in a better manner. So you might need multiple apps in your business. And also consider what the needs might be for connectivity. With what I'm doing, do I need a real-time connection? Can I run in a disconnected mode? And then I'm just going to talk briefly about packaged solutions versus building your own. Here's the thing. If you build your own solution, there's higher risk, but there's higher reward. There's bigger investment, but there's greater opportunity for you to differentiate and disrupt in your marketplace. Now, not everything requires a custom app by any means. There are a lot of packaged solutions that are out there that can work for you, and they have advantages too. A lot of them you can try before you buy. A lot of them have subscription-based pricing, so you have to take very little risk in trying them out, with a couple of users to see how that particular task, can work for you. But if it is a packaged app that's available to everyone else in your industry, you might not necessarily create a differentiation by going that direction. So pencil and paper had a great 500-year run. I really don't expect the same from the smartphones that we have today. I don't know what that's going to be, but the wearable technology, God only knows what the wearable technology is going to do for us. But I will say this. This kind of technology today is ready for prime time, and it is ready for your business. So if there's anything that I can do to help you on that path, I'd love to hear from you. And at that, I'd like to thank you for your time and your attention this afternoon. You've been a great audience. and I'm going to open it up for any questions people might have.
Question about the Android. For instance, when you spoke about the example you gave was scanning, I think, barcodes.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that always be backwards compatible with their new OSs?
It varies. I mean, it's a really important thing because the way that typically the barcode scanning works with a mobile device is you have to submit the application with what's called the DLLs for that device you're going to attach to that app store. So it has to be built in already. You have to essentially have named your device that app is going to support for those kind of accessories, before you do that. So really, it varies on the application and whether the developer has built that compatibility into it.
Thanks.
Sure. Any other questions? Thank you once again. Everyone have a great afternoon and great rest of the conference. Thank you.